So it's a franchise model. It's a bit local, but also
Right.
And then the person doing the work gets compensated, and then also whoever brings in the business gets compensated. And I imagine, like with a lot of franchises, there are people who are more heavily focused on bringing in business, and others are more focused, say, on delivery.
And that would be me.
So we were talking about, ridiculous expansion, ridiculous marketing. I'm curious, like, what does Focus CFO do to grow?
Well, what I would tell you, G. Michael, is that the reason why his business kept going is because you said it. Everybody stopped paying everybody. So people owe your friend money, and they didn't pay. Your friend owed people money, and he didn't pay his bills. So he still had cash. Right?
Omar, welcome to the Growth Stories podcast. I'm so happy to have you on the show. So Omar, you are the area president at Focus CFO. Can you tell us a little bit about what is Focus CFO?
Yeah, thank you, G. Michael. So Focus CFO, what we really do is we work with medium and small size businesses. So think about businesses $3 million to $50 million, and we provide those businesses with fractional CFO services. What is that? It's a part-time CFO that comes to the organization once or twice a week, but they give you a full strategic outlook from a financial standpoint for your organization. Our CFOs tend to have 25 plus years of experience doing CFO work. So you're truly getting a strategic finance executive added onto your team, right? And so we like to tell the joke that we look old because we are old. So we're all like industry finance veterans, again, looking to help small and medium-sized businesses.
I love that. And, a lot of folks starting out, they get to these certain revenue milestones, and then you start to have, what's the right word? Like ammunition. You could to put your resources somewhere. And it is so, at least the way I've always thought about it in my corporate life was the CFO was stopping the really bad ideas.
That's right. I like to think of the CFO, like if you go back to like your elementary school days, we're the kid who's monitoring in the hall, making sure you got to pass, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just not walking around the hall aimlessly. Either you're going to the restroom, you're going to the principal's office, or you need to be back sitting in the classroom. That's the job.
Yeah. And what are, like, when you come into one of the, let's say on the earlier side, so in the maybe smaller size of your client range, what are the common issues and like pitfalls that you prevent when you come in that they're not aware of? Because I think there's a lot, if you haven't worked with a CFO, you don't know what they can do.
Yeah, I think a lot of the pitfalls that we have is, owners, especially those that are just starting out and they're starting to see some positive results on revenue, then what they want to do is start boiling the ocean. And they'll try to throw money at different solutions to see what sticks. And it's fine to do that, I guess. But what you have to have is you have to be able to track, like, what's the return on that investment of that expense that you're kicking out. So I'll give you an example. If you have a firm or a shop that, they are primarily, most of their sales come from marketing. So if we're talking about Amazon, Google, you name it, and they're spending money on all these various marketing channels and they're getting good revenue, at some point they got to really sit down and understand, like, where are my sales coming from so that I can focus on my efforts on that sale, and not only my sales, but my profit, right? Because if I'm getting sales, but I'm spending more money on the sale, then that's not actually profitable. I need to focus my efforts on profitable revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, I need to be able to take something home in my pocket as a small business owner. So just really trying to figure out what investment or what expense they have that's actually making them profitable. And a lot of times that just goes back to understanding, like, who is your customer that you're serving? Because typically it's not going to be everybody, right? And so, really honing in.
Very hard to do that.
Yep.
Unless you're Walmart or Amazon, it's very hard to get everybody.
It is.
Yeah, I see. So that's one of the common ones is you're saying business owners, they don't know. I'm hearing this. I can't believe it, but I do because I know human beings. But I can't believe you can get that far and then not know like which channel is profitable or like what type of advertising has the highest lifetime profit. Certainly certain channels, that's how you get your best clients. Other ones maybe less so. So that's part of what you're saying is like the first.
Yeah. And I would say G Michael, like you can have a great product and you could be making money off that product, right? But eventually, if you have a great product, you're making money off that product. What's going to happen is a couple things could happen. One, you could get expense creep. Two, like barbarians at the gate. If you're making good profit and revenue, somebody else eventually wants to make that profit and revenue. So competition could enter into your segment. And now
Mhm.
that money that once seemed easy is hard to come by, right? So you're having to do things like reduce prices, increase your marketing, et cetera, in order to keep your customers coming back and keep them sticky. And that's why it's
Mhm.
important while you're having that great success to take a step back and ask yourself, what are we spending on, or what are the key things that make us successful? And we really need to hone in on those things in order to, and not so many words, protect what we have today and then build on it for the future.
So really like narrowing down on like what are the key elements that are actually valuable about what the product or service is versus, all the elements may not be equally valuable.
That's right. I mean, you could, and I've spent some time in corporate, but I've also done CFO for smaller size shops. But,
Mhm.
we got to talk about two line items, the revenue line item and the expense line item on the income statement. So it's great to make 10 million bucks, right? But if you're spending 12 million to make 10 million, that's bad. It's not good, right? Like
It becomes way less impressive.
it's not impressive, right? And so we got to ask ourselves,
Yeah.
okay, what can we take out of that 12 million to make it make sense? Like, can we cut
Yeah.
4 million from that 12 million to make the $2 million? So I'll give you an example. So I was talking to a owner of a company, very successful owner, $10 million in profit. Sorry, $10 million in revenue, 600K in profit. And what this owner wanted to do was he wanted us to come in, look at his marketing spend in order to grow his revenue. Okay, great. We can do that for you. Send me your financial statement. So got the financial statements in my hand. Guy wants to grow revenue. I looked at where he's spending in marketing, but I'm also like, wait a minute, the profit's only 600 on this. So you're
Yeah.
making 10 million, but your profit's only 6. Like that's not a good number. And so looked down at his expense account and realized, oh my goodness, this guy is writing off $800,000 of bad debt expense a year. If I could just solve for half of that bad debt expense, he's taking home $1 million profit on $10
Yeah.
million revenue. So it's like, buddy, I can help you with the revenue line item. Great. Also, you can control your expenses a lot better than you can control your revenue. And so
Yes.
what you can say is, hey, listen, folks that aren't paying me, we're no longer going to be doing business. So I can focus on folks that will pay me. Right. And that's where you get into the income statement on a cash basis versus an accrual basis. Because if I were to
Now we're
sell you
getting
a,
advanced.
yeah, but if I was going to
Here we
sell you,
go.
but if I was going to sell you a contraption, right? Like, let's just
Yeah.
say I was going to sell you this remote and you said,
Yes.
Omar, I'm going to pay you for this remote, right? So I pay you for $1. I say $1 for this remote. So there's two things that can happen on an income statement. On a cash basis, you need to give me my dollar for this remote today. And now I have
Yeah.
that dollar. Now I have the spending power of that dollar.
This is
On
what
the
I like. It's
right,
simpler for
it's
me. I
simple,
like the cash way.
simple, right?
Yeah.
But on an
Where is the
accrual
cash? That's
basis,
what I wanted.
yeah,
Yeah.
on an accrual basis, I give you this remote, and you're supposed to pay me this dollar. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep spending like I'm making this dollar. All my investors, they all think I'm gonna get this dollar. But then you say, G. Michael, you know what?
I don't
I
have it.
can't pay him this dollar. Like I
I
got
don't
other
have the
bills I
dollar.
gotta pay. I don't have it. So now I have two issues. One, I'm not getting this buck. So now that dollar actually drops down to my expense line as a bad debt expense. Two, I've probably taken the money from that dollar I thought I was going to get and invested in something else. So now
Yeah.
I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for that, right? So I now create an issue that's actually bigger than a dollar.
Absolutely. And at a large scale, you can really get hurt if some people default, or especially I have one of my friends ran like an airline sales business, and somehow they managed to stay they didn't go bankrupt during COVID, and I cannot believe that, everyone stopped paying each other. That's what basically happened.
Uh-huh.
They're supposed to get commissions. The commissions didn't get paid. Different people just didn't. All the cash stopped moving, and it seemed like a really hard time to
Well,
operate.
well, what I would tell you, Gene Michael, is that the reason why his business kept going is because you said it. Everybody stopped paying everybody. So
Yeah,
people
it's
owed
just
people owe your friend money,
yeah,
and they didn't pay. Your friend owed people money, and he didn't pay his bills. So he
yeah,
still had cash, right?
yes,
So let me
exactly.
so
Yeah,
let me tell you a situation
yeah,
that a lot of business owners and people can relate to this one. So let's just say you're a landlord and you have rental properties out there, right? And so you have this rental property, and this is why people love Airbnb, but I'll talk about the Airbnb point later. But you have this
hmm
rental property, you're charging somebody two grand a month for this rental property. Your mortgage is $1,600, right? And so in good faith, you think I'm gonna get my 2K, I'm gonna have that additional $400. So I gotta pay the lawn guy, I gotta pay the cable bill, I gotta pay the internet bill, everything to keep this place up and running for the person. Then the first of the month hits, you don't get your $2,000. They're not gonna pay you your money.
yeah,
Well, most places you can't just throw them out. You got to continue keeping that renter until you go to court, do eviction, etc. So you're continuing to stack up, not getting your money, but you're continuing to have to pay that mortgage because if you don't, the bank's going to foreclose and take that home away for you. You still got to pay your lawn people. You still got to pay, you just got to pay everybody else, right? And so
hmm
that's the predicament that companies get themselves into, unlike your friend, is they got to keep paying their bills on money that's not coming in. And so the worst thing that can
yeah.
happen as a landlord is actually not your property being empty. It's having a renter in your property who's
That
not
you
going to
can't.
pay,
Yeah,
right? Because you're continuing to have to spend money and there's no benefit. And that's the situation that businesses get themselves into.
yeah, absolutely. And the other one I'm familiar with is basically aggressive growth comes with such a big risk because I mean, I'm a marketer and, everybody wants to grow fast, but it comes with a lot of risk because, okay, well, if you maybe you have to hire to keep the service quality level up,
Mm-hmm.
and then you may have all these commitments. And then the faster you're moving, if something has a hiccup or a fluctuation, maybe the revenue dips or a system breaks. Suddenly, if the spend is very high and you
Mm-hmm.
staffed up to deliver quite high, you got to be ready for that. And a lot of people only look at the optimistic trajectory. I think I read somewhere that being on that Inc. 500 list of the fastest
Yep.
private
Yep. Inc. 5000.
getting
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Inc. 5,000, getting on the Inc. 5,000 is a indicator you're going to go out of business soon. Most of them, once they start growing that fast, they go bankrupt. They can't manage it's actually not good.
I got a funny story about the Inc. 5000.
Yeah.
One of my buddies' companies hit the Inc. 5000, and the second that he hit, I wrote him and I
Yeah.
said, "Hey man, you need a CFO. Like you
Yeah.
need a
Yeah.
fractional CFO
Yes.
right away because you're focused on the top line, nothing else." So let me I'll give you an example
Yeah.
that everybody will be able to get this example. So there's this company, and what this company does is they have bikes that you ride on, stationary bikes. You look through the television screen, and there's attractive people show you how to ride that bike, right? I
hmm
don't need to tell you what company this is, but they
Yeah.
had explosive growth during COVID because gyms were closed.
Yeah.
So what they did is say, man, we're going to grow to the moon. Everybody's going to have one of these $2,000 bikes in their home, and they're going to be riding along, and it's going to be great. And
Yeah.
so the mistake they made is before they sold the actual bikes, because they had to make the bikes, et cetera, and they had to just get ready for like this uptick, they bought all the
Inventory
inventory.
is
They
tough.
bought all the inventory, but not only did they buy all the
Oh.
inventory, they hired more pretty people, gave
Yep.
people big raises, increased the corporate staff, the marketing department, you name it, sponsored different sports teams, everything, right? So then what happens in 2021, man? COVID is done, gyms are back open, and all those orders for Peloton, oh damn, I said their name. I can
Well,
say that
we
I can
could.
say their name though, because it's true. Everybody knows this. They stopped coming in. So they have this issue. They're stacked with inventory on their balance sheet. So they have
Mhm.
all this inventory. They have this big asset on their balance sheet of billions of dollars of inventory. but they're never going to record the sale or get the revenue against this inventory. So now it's not that somebody hasn't paid them back issue. It's they've paid money out on the go forward, and that
Yeah.
money's never going to come back into them at a multiple. So in theory, they'd spend 50 cents thinking that when they sold the bike, they'd get $1. And so they'd be 50 cents profitable. But now they
Yeah.
spent the 50 cents and they might have to sell the bike for 25 cents. So in essence, when they do these sales, they're actually giving the daggone bike away, right?
Yeah.
And
This is why we need VCs.
right. This is why you need a CFO that's strategic, sitting around saying, hey, G. Michael, you sure you want to buy $1 billion worth of equipment? Like, it's not bad if people want our stuff and we don't have enough, because you know what? In this market, scarcity is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, what scarcity creates is that New York City
Waitlist.
club scene, velvet rope,
Yeah.
where everybody wants to get into the building or be part of the party. And so
Yeah.
part of the mystique that made Peloton so great, and they forgot this, is scarcity, right? Who is your audience, right? It's not everybody. Everybody's not going to put a $2,000 bike in their home. They'd rather just get fat, right? Or walk around the block. Like,
I guess that's the alternative. Yeah. Just do nothing, actually.
Just
Yeah.
do nothing.
Yeah.
Or like, it's free to walk
Yeah.
around the block. I mean, even though there's COVID, you can still go outside and walk, jog, do
Yep.
whatever it is you're going to do.
Yeah. Love it. So we were talking about, ridiculous expansion, ridiculous marketing. I'm curious, like, what does Focus CFO do to grow?
Yeah. And so Focus CFO, so we're kind of a different model in terms of how we're set up. And so Focus CFO was founded in 2001 by a gentleman named Brad Martin in Columbus, Ohio. And we're actually a franchise, right? And so, you introduced me as an area president. And so what that means is that I bought into the franchise. I sit in Charlotte. That's my core market. So if I'm going to do door-to-door marketing, then do that in Charlotte. But like, if I'm going to do marketing across the US, if somebody calls me, I can serve across the US virtually. And so we have a team of 180 CFOs that are licensees, right? So most of the company, we have 200 people. So probably 190 of them are just either franchisees or licensees, right? We have to go out and win business in order to get paid. And so the way that we focus on growth as an organization is when we go out and let's say, G. Michael, you are a business and you decide to sign with Focus CFO, and I happen to be the person to bring you in. You're actually not signing with Omar Ritter. You're actually signing with Focus CFO. And the way it is, we have a profit split, and that profit split makes me want to go out to do more business. But that CFO that comes to work for your business, that's the one, that person is getting the biggest slice of the pie because they're actually the ones doing the work for day to day.
Got it. So it's a franchise model. It's a bit local, but also national.
Right.
And then the person doing the work gets compensated, and then also whoever brings in the business gets compensated. And I imagine, like with a lot of franchises, there are people who are more heavily focused on bringing in business, and others are more focused, say, on delivery.
And that would be me. So the area presidents are focused on bringing in business, but we also have a hybrid approach for some CFOs that have 20 or more years and have actually done the CFO work and have the experience and education. We can also do CFO work for clients. So I could do CFO work for clients, and I do have a client that I do CFO work for. But the problem is if I'm trying to do CFO work and I'm trying to sell business, then I limit my ability to do stuff like this because I got to be cranking through models so that my business does not make the mistake of over expensing themselves and not being profitable. And so,
Makes sense.
So that's
a good model.
Yeah, it's a good model because I got to use my network in order to win business. And so the company doesn't spend a lot of money on marketing. It's just, working with referral partners, getting on, podcasts like this one or speaking at events and just really saying what we do and how we can help folks out and do it at a reasonable, cost as well. I mean, when I was, CFOs are expensive, man. Like, a typical
I
CFO with
noticed this.
25 years experience, this person's making
Yeah.
300-400K a year, right?
Yeah.
Like our CFOs are going to come work in your shop for less than 6 figures a year and really get you cleaned up, train the staff. And the beautiful thing about Focus CFO, we don't mind outgrowing the business outgrowing us, right? So eventually we like to see a
Mhm.
business that grows to the point where they need to hire a full-time CFO. We'll help onboard
Yeah.
that portion, et cetera. Because our CFOs, again, like these folks have had long storied careers. They
Yeah.
they don't want to be
So
the
it's really this
the full-time
specific
CFO.
region of growth that you're helping like get from like 3 to 50 or and then okay, you need
That's
a
right.
full-time
Right.
adult.
Right. And then then,
Basically.
then they'll say, you know what, man, I need a full-time CFO because,
Yeah.
I need somebody I could call. Not that you can't call our CFOs every day, but that would
Yeah.
get pretty
That
old
you
really
want.
quickly, seeing if you're only
Yes.
paying for 1 day a week. And so when you get to the point where the owner is losing sleep at night because he's got a board of directors, he's about to go public, et
Yeah.
cetera, then she needs to find herself a full-time CFO and
CFO.
shell that person
Makes
out
sense.
at least a few hundred grand a year.
Well, Omar, as we wrap up, what would your number one advice be to business owners who are at that earlier stage, at that 3 in terms of, financial intelligence moving forward in 2025, 2026? What's your top piece of advice for them that they don't know they need to know?
My top piece of advice is for them to really understand their cash flow, right? Like really
Yeah.
understand how much cash is actually coming into your building versus revenue that's sitting on your income statement. Because if you can understand the cash that you're actually bringing into the door, then you know how much you have to spend and invest in your business and you don't overreach yourself on your success because there are going to be instances where people do not want to pay you and it's not because they're blatantly not wanting to pay, it's because they can't. Because
Yeah.
their business is struggling or they're struggling, right? And so you need to sit down and really think about your cash and how do you do this? Like, you know, you don't need a CFO to really predict how much cash you need day to day, month to keep the lights
Yeah.
on in your business, right? That's the bare minimum for you. And you need to hold yourself accountable and your key employees accountable to really monitor that cash. And so there's nothing wrong with having a weekly meeting, have a few key performance indicators that you're tracking and like have a discussion around that. Like keep each other accountable in terms of what you're trying to do as a business. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of finance folks that work for large companies, banks, et cetera, that will actually come by, including myself, and do a free lunch and learn with you
Yeah.
to talk to you about like your income statement, your balance sheet, your statement of cash flow. Like I just actually did this for Rowan County, about a month ago. I came in small business owners who aren't going to be buying a fractional CFO anytime soon. And I talked to them about the income statement of cash flows, balance
Yeah.
sheet, and I put a
Cash
small
is
present.
king.
Yeah, I put a small presentation together that they could just look at and really be able to track their business, right? So there's not only like internal help, you can also get external help, for free. And it's just reaching out or having a conversation with people on the team and figure out who knows a finance expert that's willing to come by and, maybe do some pro bono work, help you out a bit.